ban Fiora here? Because Fiora, we've seen, it's starting to fall off a little bit. We're certainly seeing less bans of it, and we're starting to see less picks of it as well.
The thing about Fiora is she's a single dimension top laner in the sense that she struggles against hard CC and big 5v5s. You know, she needs that time to run and hit the vitals. She is a split push champion. She never has any other role in a team composition other than a split push champion. So if you are not adept at running split pushing compositions, it's very difficult to make Fiora work. NA generally tend to win through split push compositions. A lot of, famous CLG split push, but it's been one of their best compositions that they've run for years. So Fiora has that niche in these kind of compositions, and she's very lane dominant. She trades very well 1v1. Just starts to struggle when we get towards team fighting, especially coordinated team fights against lots of CC. Yes, she can come in the middle of a team fight and make it, a change, but any champion can do that.
Yeah.
When you want to run a successful Fiora composition, it is in the split push. That's why maybe banning it away, so neither team could potentially snowball out of the lane. But it's going to be the Kalista locked in for Yuki, and we have talked time and time again about how good Yuki is on Kalista, how every single game, I think, in the Premiership so far has had Yuki on Kalista.
I think so.
Every game that we've seen RNG play in the actual week.
As well, Kalista has been the most picked and banned across the last week in IEM and LCK as well. If you add them together, if you combine picks and bans, then it's the most favoured AD carry. So going to be locked in for the first pick, and it's the first pick we saw a lot at IEM as well. But then that is going to be countered by Gragas and Braum. Now, these guys have not been shy of being picked either.
Yeah, Gragas has seen a lot of pick, and obviously that's why Nutri has gone towards it. It has such good utility. It actually provides a high amount of damage depending on which build path you want to go to. Unbelievably, I actually played against an AP Gragas mid the other day, and he was doing...
I don't find that unbelievable.
He was doing a lot of damage.
We've all seen the montages.
Oh, yeah, but it's quite rare. Interesting if they do go for the Kindred here. I don't particularly like Kindred into Gragas, because the Gragas ultimate is pretty decent against the Kindred ultimate. Could just blast you out of it. If you're using it defensively, he uses that explosive cast. You're out of your Lamb's Respite zone, and you will get taken down pretty quickly. So I kind of find it interesting that Impaler has gone for the Kindred, and it's not a jungler that we've seen too much of recently.
Almost a little bit of a disrespect pick to some extent. I know you're playing Gragas, I know you're playing that sort of brick wall in the jungle, but I'm going to play this champion that wants to come and counter jungle and wants to bully you. It's kind of making a statement, just picking that champion up.
Interestingly, Impaler's one of the junglers that goes Devourer on Kindred. There's always been a hot sort of debate between Kindred players of whether Warrior or Devourer is better, and Impaler generally, I think, when I last heard about him talking about it maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, he was still very much in favour of that Devourer Kindred. So maybe we'll see the type of Impaler where he's looking to more counter jungle, he's looking to control objectives, maybe knowing that he's unlikely to do particularly well in terms of counter ganking and dealing with the Gragas, he'll probably stay away from that.
Well, we've got a Rammus locked in, ladies and gentlemen. I would assume that's going to go up into that top lane, which regrettably is a sentence I have to say, that Rammus top is now meta. It hurts me deep down that champion is even in the game, never mind in the meta. But Rammus going into the top lane, I mean, it's a very similar thing to Nautilus, really. You kind of you get super tanky, really obnoxious, and then, I mean, you can choose whether you want to go with kind of the ZZ Rot Banner of Command style, where you just split push with those items, or whether you choose to just get tanky and roll into team fights.
And should these two lock-ins come from, it's going to be Rumble, potentially. No.
I thought that Twitch was in for a split second.
I was just thinking about, but I actually don't think that going full armor is a bad thing here for Nick in the top lane. He could very easily go full armor, because realistically,
only Twisted Fate.
Exactly, realistically, Twisted Fate has 2 abilities that will deal magic damage to you in a short period of time.
It's not going to get rid of 4,500 health when you've got
exactly. Twisted Fate is not one of those mid laners that you really have to itemize that heavily against in terms of magic resist. He is there to make picks. His mainly utility is positional advantage and making gains in the lane.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a potential lane swap initiated from the side of Choke here, because lane swaps really mess with Twisted Fate's game plan. He likes to affect standard lanes. That's where his ultimate is most useful, turning a 2 versus 2 into a 3 versus 2 in the bot lane. Those early roams is what makes Twisted Fate so viable. You don't necessarily need to itemize against him. He's not a mid lane that really requires much magic resist early on compared to someone like a LeBlanc, for instance.
So then that brings up the question then is, like, from the perspective of the Banditos, do you try and predict the lane swap? Do you try and make it so you get 2v2 in the top lane? Are we even going to see a lane swap? That really adds another dynamic to this, because it's so much more important that they get that right. But I mean, I think we should take a look at the compositions now that have started to build up for ourselves.
So, I mean, let's have a look at the side of RNG first. Rammus is Trundle is a strict counterpick to Rammus in the top lane. They would probably be looking for 1v1s there. You can build the resistances of Rammus, but you're always just going to steal them as the Trundle. You'll be stealing AD, obviously. More AD you get it from more armor from Rammus because of that passive that he has. So it's practically a strict counter pick in that top lane. He will be able to split push quite effectively versus Rammus for the majority of the game, depending on how he builds, and then can still be you know, a threatening tank in these sort of skirmishes too.
That's kind of the thing about Trundle, isn't it? He's never going to be too far away from the meta, because the second those tanks start to come into the top lane, his ultimate is just that anti-tank ability.
But then you look at the rest of the composition. They have Candy Floss on that Twisted Fate. He'll be looking to make macro level map plays. You know, that's what Twisted Fate does. He doesn't really have a role anywhere else. Maybe then we'll see them rotate into a 1-3-1 here. You have Trundle in the top lane splitting, then you have your Kalista, Thresh, and Kindred in that mid lane, and then leave Twisted Fate on the side lane. Interestingly, he's gone for Cleanse just because of the amount of CC he's facing. It's a very, I think, very
directly into Lissandra as well. It's kind of a...
The issue I have is that this 1-3-1 is going to be met with another 1-3-1, but then also they have the Sivir composition. So, you know, if they ever had to 1-3-1, they have the tools because they have the double teleport. But realistically, they're going to be wanting to grouping and winning, basically. You know, that's the classic where you play a Sivir composition. And with this composition that they have, is so much engage coming through.
I'm really afraid for, like, Candy Floss when you see Jokerism pop his on the hunt, and then you see Ginge just powerball past at the speed of light. That is going to be a terrifying little armadillo.
The addition of Lissandra adds this another dynamic to the Sivir composition, in the sense that you don't necessarily need to have Lissandra with you when you pop that on the hunt. She can flank, and then you just make it so much easier for on the hunt to catch up with people, because either Lissandra can lock a target down. That's what Sivir's compositions generally do. You kill a singular target, then catch up to the rest of the team, forcing a 5v4. You know, the moment you're a minute portion of the map out of position, they will punish you and try and punish your team for it. But Lissandra adds a new dynamic. You can flank with Lissandra. You can either ult yourself and obviously provide that level of slow, that AoE slow to the team, so that your team can catch up, or you can pick off a target. Pick off a target, allow your team to catch up, kill that target, and then move on. So it's very interesting, the level of dynamic that the Lissandra adds.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we go. Just 60 seconds until we're going to be getting onto this map. So this first game going to be underway. But I think we need to take another look at the fact that this is an incredibly important game for the Banditos here, because if they can win this game, they are 4-0, which means in a 7-week group stage, they have guaranteed themselves a spot in the playoffs.
And it puts pressure on Manolite. There's a lot of pressure on Manolite, because everyone's going to want to be getting that first seed spot. It allows you that slightly easier route through the finals, you know, supposedly based on seedings. So Manolite then are going to be going into arguably potentially a closer game in terms of what bookies would say would the outcome be. So they're going to be going in thinking, oh, we want to get that top, you know, that joint top spot. We want to make sure we're on a level with Renegade Banditos, so that when we meet them in week 7, I believe. I think it's week 7 they meet.
Yeah. Week 7, game 3 it is the Banditos versus Manolite.
When they meet in week 7, they want to make sure that that game means everything.
That game can't come fast enough.
They don't want to be going into that game trying to get level. They want to be going into that game saying, if we win here, we take the top spot from Banditos. And I think that's where Manolite is really aiming for their top level goal here, because they said coming into the Premiership, every time they were in the promotion tournament, the only reason they wanted to be there was to face Renegades. And they never got the chance to face Renegades. And I think that they're now waiting, and they're trying to get to that position where they...
their time
exactly.
Now.
And we've seen Manlight play, and they look strong, but are they strong enough to go against Renegades?
Let's remember that these are both teams that have been scrimming against challenger teams as well. These guys aren't no longer... The UK scene is no longer just kind of within the UK. These teams are starting to scrim against the challenger level teams as well. So make sure you let us know who you think is going to be able to take this first game of the night using the hashtag ESLPrem on Twitter, and we'll see which team is the favorite here. But I'm ready to head on to the map shortly. It's going to be Choke Gaming up against the Renegades Banditos. And honestly, with the fact that Nutri's come in, like that extra strategic brain on the side of Choke, and the fact that Candy Floss is here now, who are obviously subbing in for Caedrel, or I don't know whether it's subbing or replacing, I'm not 100% sure, to be quite honest, but it's been sort of last minute for them. I'm curious to see if that's going to be a big enough of a difference to kind of knock the Renegades off this almost pillar that the UK scene seems to have put them on.
I mean, definitely. They have to expect Candy Floss to perform here, at least to a competent level in that mid lane, because Luxie is a fantastic mid laner. He had a really good showing last week. And, you know, Impaler has to go toe-to-toe with Nutri, who, you know, Nutri had a bit of a time where he was struggling in League of Legends, but he seems to have found that groove once again and coming back swinging here.
I think the key thing to remember as well isn't necessarily the Nutri that was struggling towards the end of his UK career. I don't know what really to call it when you talk about the UK scene, but we need to remember the Nutri that was absolutely dominant. He was on pre-LCS Unicorns of Love, let's remember. This is a guy that is a very, very strong player, not only strategically, but also in terms of his mechanics and in terms of his knowledge of matchups as well. So this is a guy that definitely can give Impaler a run for his money. And actually, Impaler and Nutri kind of both were peaking at a similar time.
Yeah, different sort of levels of the game, but they both had that peak around a year ago now, you know, year and a half. Yeah. And both of them have been struggling to, I guess, get back to that recent form and actually
regain the glory days.
Back to the glory days. And honestly, Nutri has made such a rise from where we thought he was basically retired from UK League of Legends, all the way back to the top tier play here. I think this is a matchup that we have to keep an eye on this game, because both of these junglers have had chances to become sort of UK Hall of Fame players.
Yeah. Well, let's find out if they're going to be able to make their way back into that Hall of Fame. It's going to be I'm really excited for this jungle matchup. Impaler versus Nutri. One of my notes I've actually got down is just 4 good junglers, because the 2 games today have, I would argue, give Nutri another couple of weeks and these 4 junglers will be the 4 best junglers in the UK.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see. We'll see if they're going to be able to prove themselves in this game. Very standard starts here, just spreading out across the map, but doesn't look like either team's going for a lane swap.
I mean, as it stands so far, you would be correct. I'm interested to see how Impaler chooses to play this Kindred, because every single time we've seen him on this jungle, he's either been incredibly gank heavy or incredibly invade heavy. Now, will he choose to go that aggressive versus Nutri on this Gragas? Will he choose to be in the enemy jungle consistently? I mean, I think it really depends on what path he opts to take this Kindred down. If it's the Warrior, I imagine gank heavy. If it's the Devourer path he's choosing, I imagine he's going to be counter jungling as much as physically possible. Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be the question as well, and I think it's a matter of how much respect he gives Nutri onto which style of play he's going to go for there. And Gragas, I mean, I think it was a game with Nutri in it, where he was playing Nidalee ages ago, and towards the end of the last season, and he just completely bullied someone out of the jungle. I can't remember specifically, but it was Nidalee versus Gragas, and I think he was on the Nidalee. We'll see whether he's going to be able to kind of hold his own on that Gragas in the jungle, or whether it's going to be a similar story from Impaler. But
I didn't really talk about this in Champ Select, but the rise of Sivir is really good for Jokerism. Because Jokerism played huge amounts of Sivir back in the day. In the last ESL Premiership, that's kind of the joke, was that Jokerism just plays Sivir. And so the rise of Sivir is kind of good for him again. You kind of put him back towards a champion that he is so comfortable on.
And he gets to show off his pack skin as well.
Exactly, that pack skin, which
I think that's the key thing here. I think that's the most important factor when it comes to competitive League of Legends, is obviously skin to win. Always going to be something very important, close to my heart. But here we go. We've got a gank coming in the mid lane. Impaler looking to get onto Luxie, but the flash gold card is going to be there. But the Glacial Path is just going to be there in time. I thought he was going to be stunned through that then.
That's fine for Luxie because all he burnt was a bit of his health.
Candy Floss flashed as well.
Exactly, and that's going to make Twisted Fate incredibly targetable in that mid lane. I know he's got the cleanse, but this early on in the game, maybe Nutri can make something happen because what is he going to cleanse? Only that Ring of Frost, I believe, from Luxie, and there's nothing else left for him there to cleanse. So Candy Floss now has to be incredibly careful because a Twisted Fate without the flash is a very easy target.
Certainly as an Impaler, he's already getting that counter jungle game going, and I mean, I was going to say he's looking towards the top lane, but realistically you can't exactly walk under that tower at this stage. But
his mark is that River Scuttler, which is interesting because he hasn't chosen to go for that early on. A lot of Kindreds like to rush that River Scuttler if it's the mark very early because it's such an easy target for you to pick up.
Yeah.
So he's not actually gone for that this early on into the game.
I suppose more worrying about making sure that there's that early pressure on the map. I think he was maybe trying to catch Nutri as he went towards the red buff off the back of that mid lane gank, but looks like he is just going to be clearing away the Gromp, and then I'll be interested to see how soon he heads down. I would expect him to go down to that bottom side very soon, but obviously he hasn't actually got his red buff either, so just completely prioritizing this top half of the map so far.
The fact that he has gone pretty farm heavy so far in terms of, you know, he's cleared some topside jungle camps, he's now methodically going through and clearing this bottom side jungle and topside jungle of his own. That would lead me to believe he's likely going towards that Devourer enchant. It's just the style of play you'd expect someone who is looking to farm quite heavily into the game. So I imagine Impaler's going to stick to the Kindred build he's used to, as Nick in this top lane has to be very careful here. He does get away just towards his turret.
Just about escaping with that one. That was a little bit too close for comfort. Did still have flash, so was just about okay in that one. But, I mean, so far, this has been a relatively quiet game. We are seeing a titanic CS lead starting to be built up already for Alphari. Take a look up in the top lane. Almost double the CS. In fact, over double the CS coming out for Alphari.
It's so difficult as a Rammus to face a Trundle in the early game. I mean, Trundle outtrades most other melee top laners, especially AD top laners. Candy Floss now.
Oh, Candy Floss in that mid lane. Nutri has come in to get that gank. Luxie going to be looking to try and freeze up Candy Floss, who looks like he's given up on life at this point.
Just trying to get as much farming as possible before he gets killed. And to be honest, that is what I mean by Twisted Fate when he has got no flash. He is such a vulnerable mid laner. I think very risky and I guess ballsy of him to burn that flash early on, looking for the kill on Luxie. Not entirely worth it.
I think they thought that they were going to be able to deny the stun on, or deny the gap closer.
I mean, it was milliseconds. It was milliseconds with that Glacial Path.
Oh, here we go. Bit of a trade going down in the bottom lane. Wiz going to be caught by the Death Signs, but does just jump away with that stun behind me. So, going to be able to get away with that one. But, I mean, I was talking about the CS lead up in the top lane. Take a look towards mid as well. 20 CS leads starting to be built up for Luxie. And with that kill under his belt as well, he's really going to be starting to build up a gold lead. Already 800 gold ahead of Candy Floss in that mid lane. So maybe
Wiz,
the jungle prowess not really being enough. Wiz is incredibly low, but Hiva flashes for the auto attack. Jokerism as well, taking a huge chunk of damage there. And that is the power of that 2v2 down in the bottom lane. Nick is in trouble, does get the knock up onto Alphari. The pillar's not going to be there, and Alphari can't quite chase that kill out. But take a look at Jokerism, who's gone... I thought he'd gone deep. It was in fact Impaler that's gone incredibly deep for that one. Does finish off that kill. Red buff going to be more than enough to finish that off. And we've mentioned before how powerful this bottom lane is from the Renegades, and they are proving it in this game.
Yeah, I mean, action all over the map, but the key things you have to pick up here is just Alphari able to outtrade consistently with Nick in this top lane. Nick is burning everything. He's going very aggressive here as well, going to get away with that power ball. And then that bot lane is just so oppressive. Yuki and Hiva, time and time again, perform consistently on Thresh and Kalista. That is the lane that they have ran pretty much consistently throughout the ESL Premiership. They have won 2v2 every single time with very little impact from the junglers. And you saw there, that was practically single-handedly won by Hiva and Yuki. They just picked up that final... kill with Impaler just going behind the turret.
More duo-handedly, since there's two of them.
Yes, true. That's true. I get.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right there. Impaler was kind of just coming to try and sneak some of their rations rather than really
Impala's
needed
here,
for the kills.
Going to go straight on towards this blue buff. He is level 6, so he's slightly higher than Nutri and Wiz at this point in time. Candy Floss also coming through here.
Here we go. Nutri gets the smite, though. He's going to be able to pick up that blue buff, and Wiz pushing forward very aggressively. Going to straight up exhaust Candy Floss, but the barrel was missed by Nutri. With a nice flash from Candy Floss, that is going to mean that they escape, but they do lose the blue buff.
Yeah, and actually they've gone for the lane swap here because they know that their 2v2 just doesn't match up against the 2v2 of Renegades, and Nick is just having such a terrible time in the top lane.
This is painful. Put yourself in the shoes of the Rammus. You do not want to be going into this lane swap.
But it puts pressure on Alphari here, but also gives some relief to Jokerism and Wiz. And this is just a sign of a dominant lanes here from both the top and bot lane. And it was kind of what we expected. Candy Floss would be struggling in that mid lane because not a mid lane main, you know, compared to the countless hours of jungle he has under his belt. But it's just the other lanes from Renegades consistently performing, winning their lanes and winning the game. That's how we've talked about the Renegades' strategy to most games that they win. And I've got to be honest, Nutri, I feel, has been very quiet so far.
Yeah, Nutri, not really. I mean, they obviously just went for that blue invade, but I'd say that's kind of the most aggressive thing he's really been doing. It's mostly just been looking for pressure when enemies misstep, but that's not going to happen all that much against the Renegades. We do see Candy Floss did use his ultimate there, but decided not to actually use the port on that, just using that for vision. So going to try and deny any objectives, but take a look at this. Impaler again going for these invades. Is going to be able to take away this blue buff from Nutri, and that is the power right there of the Twisted Fate ultimate.
And he is going for that Devourer as well. And yes, very cleverly picked up Munch that he used that Twisted Fate ultimate to note that Nutri was on the top side of the map, so he could very easily, for free, go and invade that blue buff. And not a lot of players use Twisted Fate ultimate for all of its purposes. A lot of people will say, oh, we're literally using it to affect the map. We're going to get Twisted Fate somewhere, look for a gank. But the vision it provides can be invaluable as well. And you saw right there, it allowed Impaler the time and space to make the invade happen.
You often see it like if people are panicking that Baron's coming. That's kind of the only time you really see it for vision. I wish we would see it more for vision. It's something that I feel isn't used often enough. So
look, the counter lane swap again came in from Renegades, answered by Choke. But to be completely honest, Choke are losing every single time they try and make this lane swap happen because they've already lost that bot lane turret. They're only going to lose pressure on this top lane turret as well now. So Renegades will say, fine, you lane swap into a 2 versus 1 every day of the week. It's just going to allow Yuki and Hiva to take turrets. And historically, what we've seen Renegades do is take turrets very early, having won their lane matchups. And oh my word, they have to be careful in this top lane.
They do indeed. And that's going to deny the Dark Passage. Beautiful Frozen Tomb. And there's a taunt as well. Yuki goes down and they get shut down. Choke with a nice rotation there, but what do they lose off the back of this? They
may lose pressure on this mid lane turret. Teleport was used here by Luxie to make his way there, but this is a very healthy mid lane turret at this point in time.
Paylor's not going over there. So.
No, he's not. He's just looking to counter jungle at this point in time. Going to be meeting Jokerism as here he goes, Impaler.
Yeah, I'm not sure Jokerism should be checking that, especially when he knows that Impaler's there. He had a pink ward available, but... Oh, wait, no, sorry, that's Impaler's pink ward. But he had a ward, in fact, available, so... Not 100% sure on that decision there.
So Nutri very sensibly at this point in time now making his own counter jungling moves with a good amount of pink ward vision across this topside jungle of Renegades. So he's going to move through and take some of his own creeps. And actually, Hiva has to be so careful here.
Hiva way far out on his own. I'm not 100% sure on this one. Wiz is going to be able to get that Winter's Bite, but Alphari's teleported in. Nutri has arrived on the scene as well. So it's 2 versus 3, but the health bars are not looking great for Choke. Good flash by Wiz to dodge away from the hook, but it's not going to be enough to save Nutri. He goes down to the rend of Yuki.
He does, and that was a very timely teleport by Alphari there. I do think slightly over-aggressive by Hiva, but it did pay out for them in the end as Choke committed thinking they could pick Hiva off, and then the turnaround teleport from Alphari managed to do everything. And if you look at Jokerism in this bot lane, I don't know whether he's freezing or he might now be looking to push the wave out, but he has no position to get anything from that very poor trade that Choke experienced right there. And they're going to lose yet another turret without managing to apply pressure to any turrets of their own.
Yep, so there we go. That's another turret going down. And Jokerism trying desperately to counter-push this. But look at that. Still 3/4 of HP on that bottom lane turret, so I wouldn't expect him to be able to get this one just yet. maybe in another couple of, although I don't know, it's hard to call. It's always, I always find it hard to work out whether they can get them when it's low AD.
I think he should be able to get this now, but they will trade it for this Rift Herald, which has just gone down.
You say that, they're looking to contest. Oh, you can't pick it up, can you? What am I talking about? But Heaver, he's picked it up.
Oh, my word.
Actually going to have to flash just to hold onto that one in the meantime. Just because I said he couldn't, Jokerism is going to be able to take that bottom tower. Yeah,
that was such a risky play from Heaver, but very luckily they managed to utilize that movement speed buff, and he flashed away to safety, just escaping that explosive barrel. Candy Floss the target now.
He certainly is. The jump forward from Luxie is not quite going to be able to find Candy Floss, though. And
he had cleanse too. He had cleanse. He would have been safe.
Yeah, the flash did have to come out from Candy Floss, so does get away in the end. And I mean, we do see a tower advantage coming out from the Banditos so far. However, they're only 2,500 gold ahead at 14 minutes, just under. It's not the greatest of leads we've ever seen come out of them, and it's certainly, I don't feel like they've won the game just yet, which honestly, at 13.5 minutes, I have felt that way before.
For sure, with Banditos especially, but my qualm is that, you know, coming towards the mid-game, they're going to want to start to group. Now, Jokerism has picked up his Essence Reaver. That's a kind of small item spike for Sivir at this point in time.
Yeah.
Be able to maintain her mana pool, which is quite useful because Boomerang Blade costs quite a significant portion of mana.
Curiosity, I don't know if you know this, because this is a very specific interaction. But
sure.
Now that Ricochet crits with each proc, does that proc Essence Reaver 7 times if you hit a wave? Because that's not something that you can find on a tool type. That's something that you kind of have to just test on a custom game,
I imagine every hit would potentially give you the mana back, which is...
Because they obviously do on hit, like you get red buff spread, don't you, I think? So I'm not 100% sure. That's an interesting one. Tweet us at the hashtag ESLPrem and let me know whether or not you get multiple procs of the Essence Reaver. We do have a quick pause coming out, but let's take this opportunity to look at our inventories here. Some huge CS discrepancies across the board. We've got a 50 CS lead in favor of Alphari, but then in the mid lane, 35 CS lead in favor of Luxie, and then down in that bottom lane, it's much, much closer between the two AD carries, but you do see Yuki with that kill and 2 assists, but it's all about Heaver right now. 1-0 and 2 on that Thresh. He's
100% kill participation as of yet, so, but then so has Yuki, to be fair. So, like we said, everything generally tends to revolve, all the action generally tends to revolve around how dominant that bot lane is on the side of RNG. Candy Floss impressively has managed to hold his own despite losing out that early kill from burning his flash. 35 CS is not awful. He was starting to fall behind the early game, but has managed to keep himself. And we are back into game right now. Like I said, you know, he's managed to keep himself up in terms of, you know, CS difference. That CS difference that he had in the early game has now been maintained, and since he hasn't got any further behind, and I think maybe, you know, he's got that Rod of Ages. He can start to impact the map a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, because Luxie has just finished his Rod of Ages as well. So it's kind of, both of these mid laners are going to be ramping up here. I'm curious to see who's going to have the bigger impact. We are going to see that blue buff stolen away. I think Heaver accidentally got that one. Not sure if that was on purpose there. But I mean, shorter cooldown death sentences. I'm sure Heaver's not complaining about that one. But
I think... I'm not sure if we are live with the Devourer changes to Rift Herald yet. I don't think we are. I think that's maybe the next patch. But essentially, the Rift Herald will now only provide 2 stacks going forward. But I believe we're still on the live patch where it's 5 stacks, which means Impaler may have got some stacks for his Devourer. He's currently sitting at 11, so I would imagine that could be the case.
5,
yeah, I mean, I think they're going to want to look to try and secure Dragon as soon as physically possible as well, because those extra 5 stacks will really help Impaler head towards that glorious number of 30, which obviously gives him that huge power spike as a Kindred, especially when you're going for the Devourer. He's now desperately looking for the mark, because I think it is the Razorbeak camp of the enemy jungle that has been marked. I think he managed to pick that one up there.
Well, the mark's still on the minimap, so I think he just about missed out on that one. But he's going to head over towards his blue buff. And take a look at this. We already see Luxie starting to go for this split push roll. He has his teleport available. And with a Rod of Ages, 2-0-2, he's feeling pretty comfortable. However, he has just used his Glacial Path, and now Alphari is looking to challenge him. He's got a minion wave to hide in, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And Alphari just rolls him right over right there. And I mean, that is pretty much the story of watching Alphari play League of Legends right there. He just strolls into a lane and picks up a kill.
Yeah, and cleverly they put Candy Floss up against Nick in this top lane.
Yeah, Nick is in a whole bunch of trouble. Is going to flash, but gets caught by the gold card. Impaler going to be able to get that slow down. The percent damage going to tick on through. Can they finish this one off, though? Candy Floss doesn't have his flash available. If he can land the gold card, they've got it. But Ginge is going to have Powerball any second now, and he will be able to just walk away. But we have a fight in the mid lane. In the meantime, Yuki manages to grab one onto Nutri.
So, you know, there was just lack of vision in that bot lane there for Luxie. He got caught out by Alphari, using that glacial path to just clear the waves as Candy Floss comes in to secure the turret. So once that glacial path was down, it was easy pickings for the Trundle in that bottom lane. He just walked straight through. Luxie didn't even burn his flash because he knew it was unlikely he was going to be able to get away. So very well played by Alphari. Top lane, Nick rolled away. I think Nick's done that for quite a significant portion of this game so far. He has just used that Powerball to escape a lot of dangerous situations, as you would expect a Rammus to do. In that mid lane, they looked at basically what happened there is they saw the action bot, they saw the action top, and they immediately tried to use the Sivir ultimate to collapse onto both Yuki and Hiva to try and force a 3 versus 2. Somehow, we didn't catch it on screen. They managed to turn it around, and they put a lot of pressure onto Jokerism, who was forced to flash away very early there, and it allowed them to consolidate and pick up the kill onto Nutri, who tried to turn things around in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. So tank versus tank up in the top lane. So far, Alphari managing to take a bit of an advantage here. Just 40 CS up now. So we've seen Ginge manage to close that CS gap by about 10, but still not feeling great. However, when you're playing those tanks up in the top lane, it's not necessarily that important how the lane goes to some extent. Obviously, if you feed lane, it's never going to be good whatever you're playing, but the tanks
you
typically...
You can afford 1 or 2 deaths in lane, yeah, and it won't be the worst thing in the world.
You're still going to get tanky towards the later stages of the game.
You just rely on the time. And the thing about Rammus top is he's kind of a farm-reliant top laner. He does need to get the gold behind him to make him incredibly powerful. That's kind of why he was always an off-pick in the jungle, never really hit meta, is because he requires quite a significant portion of gold to make sure that he works effectively. Alphari going to be brought onto turret, but with that wonderful keystone, he'll be absolutely fine. As Wiz now the target in the mid lane.
He certainly is, but he's going to be able to jump away. Hiva using that box, but doesn't quite manage to secure the kill for himself. Glacial Fission nearly off cooldown as well, so maybe this is an opportunity for Choke to try and force something. They're only 4,000 gold down, so I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility. They've got the teleport available on Luxie, but Ginge is not feeling all that healthy right now, down to about half up in that top lane, but we'll see whether they try and force anything here. Looks like another Rift Herald going to be going the way of the Banditos here. Should be able to pick that one up with absolutely no contestation, but Ginge has just been dived into the top lane, but here we go. They're looking to contest. Nice flash out of Alphari, but flash won't save you from a Glacial Tomb. He will be locked up, and he will be going down any second now. Jokerism going to arrive just to pick up that final blow, but it is top laner for top laner, but 4 men sent to the top lane just to finish off that kill. In the meantime, Yuki shoving out that mid.
Yeah, and they got the Rift Herald too, so that's more stacks for Impaler and a bit of push pressure available for Renegades to utilize as well. Nutri trying to steal away his own red buff as Impaler says, nope, this is still my jungle.
Yeah, Impaler's on 25 now, so it's definitely 5, but that is going to be a kill going across to Yuki. He grabs himself a double, and he might look for Jokerism as well. No. In fact, that's going to be Impaler grabbing that one. And that is not good news for Choke. Suddenly, it was all looking fairly even. I mean, they weren't looking too far behind, and now Banditos just kind of find a couple of little picks, find themselves a Rift Herald, and now they're going to find themselves a Luxie underneath the tower. He goes down, Candy Floss picks that one up. This should be a tier 2 as well. Yeah,
and again, Yuki and Hiva doing serious work for their team so far. You only need to look at the farm difference in that jungle to see that Impaler has generally had more map impact and managed to secure himself more gold on this jungle Kindred rather compared to that. Oh wow, they're going very aggressive for Wiz here.
Yeah, Wiz tanking up a lot of rend stacks, might just be going down. Yuki actually flashes just to get that rend off, but now he's found himself incredibly low. Ginge trying to find his way in, Yuki having to use that heal to get him and Hiva a little bit of movement speed. Nutri and Jokerism though looking
ultimate up
to
for
chase this
soon.
Yeah, On the Hunt is about to come off cooldown. Candy Floss is going to be slowed. That's going to be a kill for Ginge onto Hiva. In fact, onto Yuki, sorry. That's 2 kills now as Impaler trying to get away. The Lantern is going to be blocked by Nutri, but Impaler flashes over the wall regardless. And now Alfari looking to turn this one around. Ginge going to be the target, but he is one tanky little armadillo. Impaler looking for a way around, but Jokerism has been left out to dry. Alfari finishes him off, and now Ginge is going to be the target. Slow is down. Percent damage is going to be there, but they can't quite finish him off. Alfari going to be locked up by that frozen tomb. Dances his way through the dark passage. That is going to be the Banditos escaping as Nutri smites away that blue buff.
Yeah, I think Nutri managed to secure that for himself.
He
So
did,
Impaler.
yeah.
Doesn't matter to Impaler, though. He's already hit the Sated Devourer now, so he doesn't necessarily need to be so keen on that counter jungling, maybe just looking to deny gold.
He's got Phantom Dancer as well.
Yeah, he's gone Phantom Dancer, which is just because Phantom Dancer had that buff a couple of patches ago, people have started to find that it's quite an efficient item to build when you're looking for a second attack speed item, especially since it provides that damage reduction to yourself. So when you're considered yourself going to be a pretty obvious target, sometimes it can help out when you're dealing with things like Rammus or anybody that will be looking to apply damage to you over a longer period of time. So I quite like the Phantom Dancer pickup here. He's going to then go towards what's looking like a Starax Gauge. So he's going to be kind of like that front line, reduced damage to yourself, shieldy Kindred, which is the build path we're likely going to see coming out from Impaler here.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that one at all. Looks like they're going to be going for another Rift Scuttler here. Impaler going to grab that one for himself. And I'm not sure if that was his marked target. The mark doesn't seem quite in River. I'm not sure if that's Baron that's marked. I didn't even know that was... Can that be a thing?
Baron can get marked, I believe.
It looks like it. The mark didn't vanish when they picked up Scuttler, so it must be Baron that's marked, but I've not actually seen that interaction before.
I don't know whether... it's been 3 minutes now, so I don't know whether Herald carries on the mark once it kills itself after 20 minutes. But I imagine... I'm pretty sure that that's the Baron mark. I think that can actually happen to Kindreds.
Well, that's unlucky if that is the case, but... I mean, I say that's unlucky... They're not that far away from being able to do Baron
they've got
at this
a
7K
gold advantage,
lead, yeah. And they've got a Kalista as well, so that Rend is always going to be a huge boon when you're looking to take an early Baron.
And that was a second item QSS on the Kalista, by the way. She picked that up before she finished her Hurricane, just because of how scared she is from that Glacial Tomb and the Taunt from the Rammus. I think very... sensible item pickup from Yuki, because he knows that he's going to be the target. He knows how much impact he has in these games. Oh, Nick again.
Yeah, Nick is in trouble. Candy Floss teleports down here. He is getting pretty tanky, though, so managing to survive this one. The teleport is going to be cancelled in the end, but it's enough to save the mid laner's life. But here we go. Massive fight in the mid lane as we see Wiz go down to start this one off. Heaver should be traded across for this one as Jokerism finishes him. Flashes away, and Nutri just about escapes with his life. Jokerism flashing forwards. Boomerang Blade. Not quite enough as Impaler manages to get Lamb's Respite. Who's going to be the ones to drop? That's the question. One apiece so far as Impaler tries to escape, but the Powerball is rolling along, and Impaler is going to be dropping it. Grabs a double kill, in fact. The taunt comes out. Ginge finally gets that, but in the meantime, as you say, the bottom lane, we've got Candy Floss and Alfari just pushing away. They're looking for an inhibitor, and there's nothing Nutri can do about it. The Banditos just turn it on. They trade 3 for 3, but it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. So Nick teleported in there, and that was such a crucial teleport to an attempt to turn the fight around, but it just left the bot lane completely exposed. RNG were so happy with that trade, and the fact that Impaler came out with a double kill as well as just icing on the cake. This is looking grim for Choke at this point in time. It was always a tough battle for them going in against what we considered potentially the best team in our league. And right now, the best team in our league are starting to run away with it.
Yeah, they certainly are. And I mean, you can't sugarcoat it too much. 8,000 gold lead now at 25 minutes. It's certainly starting to look pretty one-sided. But, I mean, Choke going to be able to grab this dragon for themselves. So at least they're not in any trouble of a 5 dragon. But I don't think that was ever something that was going to be on the cards anyway.
The scorelines of the top laners look like they've both had sort of equal levels of impact across the game. Just not the case. Alfari has been far more dominant in the split push and far more effective in the split push than Nick. And that's just because of the nature of the champion that he's playing at the moment. Obviously, Trundle just so oppressive in a 1 versus 1 against high resistance stacking, and Nutri looking to go for the steal.
Fight's kicking off. It is going to go the way of Impaler. Heaver looks to be the focus target as Nutri just gets taken down. Luxie already having to use Frozen Tomb on himself as Impaler pushes forward onto the AD carry of Choke. Alfari zoning so well as Impaler grabs another double kill for himself. Ginge having to flash Powerball just to roll away. But here we go. Candy Floss actually going to use his port I was going to say you don't want to go too deep with that one.
He was a little bit far away from his team members. I've got to say, though, I think that was like, if we lose this Baron and we lose the game, the bot lane inhibitor was already exposed. They had to try and go for the play because of just how big Baron power plays can be at this stage in the game as well.
I mean, you're talking about how big Baron power plays can be. This might just be a Baron power play that ends the game right now. If they can push with these empowered super minions from the bottom lane,
many minions as well,
annihilating that ZZ rot, they're going to be able to end this game if they can focus down these Nexus. The Jokerism could have gone over to base, but in fact, he didn't have any HP, and that is going to be picked up by Alphari. There's another kill onto Ginge, and this is going to be the game going over to Banditos. Look at this zoning on the fountain. Nothing that the Choke members can do to escape. And this is going to be the 4th win in a row for the Banditos. They are still undefeated here in the Premiership. Didn't even drop a game during the promotions or the regular season. There goes the Nexus. And there goes the first game of the night in favor of the Banditos. They managed to take down Choke Gaming.
I mean, that, simply put, was just top and bot lane from the Renegade Banditos being completely dominant. I mean, Nick managed to escape quite a lot of times, so his death count didn't really reflect kind of the level of pressure he was receiving from Alphari in that lane. But, you know, the lane swaps initiated by Choke. Choke were consistently playing catch-up to turrets in the game. They didn't have the same level of lane pressure as Renegades managed to put down. And Yuki and Hiva, once again, when will you start to learn to ban Kalista